The following program is brought to you in part by Logisticare, the nation's leading provider of specialized transportation network management to state and local government clients. By Maine's credit unions, now is the time for a credit union. There is one for you. And by MacPage, developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference.
Welcome to Pingree and Katz, the main event. In our left corner, we have Hannah Pingree, former House Majority Leader and Speaker of the House. In our right corner, we have Senator Roger Katz of Augusta, representing District 24. This week, Roger and Hannah have assembled a panel of experts to discuss tough Maine issues affecting the entire state. To wrap it up, we'll visit with Gary Crocker as he gives us his view from West Gardner. It's all right here with Pingree and Katz, the main event.
Welcome to Pingree and Katz, the main event. I'm State Senator Roger Katz.
And my name is Hannah Pingree, and we are here today because it's primary season, and we are very pleased to have the two candidates for the Maine's 2nd Congressional District primary here, and we hope for a lively discussion. So thank you for joining us. We'll be right back.
At MacPage, we believe in developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference. We enjoy the people we serve and care about the work we do, providing integrated accounting, consulting, and tax services to our clients throughout New England and across the country. Please visit us at macpage.com to learn more.
The trend is clear. More Maine people are joining credit unions. The reasons are clear. Credit unions offer something different from banks: true financial value, loan rates that are usually lower, products and services with low fees or none at all. That's because credit unions are owned by their members, people just like you, who create a community that welcomes you wherever you are in life. Discover why a credit union is your best financial choice. Now is the time.
Welcome back to Maine's 2nd Congressional District primary with the two Democratic candidates. And I'm going to introduce Troy Jackson first. Senator Troy Jackson is from Allagash, Maine, where he represents Aroostook County, and he is currently serving as the Majority Leader of the Maine State Senate. I had the pleasure of serving with Troy for 6 years in the Maine House, and he has gone on to be a 3-term state senator. Troy has chaired the legislature's Labor Committee, Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee, and today, in addition to being the Majority Leader, he serves on the Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee. Outside of his time in the Maine legislature, Senator Jackson works as a logger in northern Maine, and he has 2 kids with his partner, Lana. So welcome, Troy, and it's great to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And also, Troy's my colleague, as is Senator Emily Cain. Emily is from Orono and has served 8 years in the Maine House of Representatives. She's now been 4 years as a senator. I think Emily was the youngest ever House Minority Leader, served as also House Chair of the Appropriations Committee, now serves as Chair of the Government Oversight Committee as well as Appropriations, married to Danny, and works for the University of Maine and is by far the best singer in the Maine State Senate. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Emily, let's start with you. I think the thing people want to know is, well, why are you running? Why are you running for Congress? You're in the state Senate, you're doing a great job. Why run for Congress?
Well, thank you for having us. Thank you for having me. I'm running for Congress because I'm optimistic about Maine, because I believe it's better to be part of the solution than to be part of the problem. And it's the combination of my own personal experience with my family combined with the stories I've heard of Maine families all across the state that make me believe we can do better in Congress. And that's why I'm running.
Troy?
Well, thank you. I also appreciate very much having the opportunity here today. I'm running for Congress for the same reason I ran for the legislature 12 years ago. I don't find that working class, middle class people are represented enough in D.C. I think that, people that get up every morning, work hard, play by the rules need to have representation in Washington. I certainly think that Congressman Mitchell has done a great job of that over the last 12 years. I'd like to certainly continue his work, and I'd like to hopefully expand on it because that's who I am. I'm a working class person, and I think that, like I said, working class people need to have a voice in D.C.
Great. Troy, next question for you, and we'll give Emily a chance to answer. Today in D.C., I think we've all read the headlines, and I know it personally through a family member. Washington is a tough place. Partisanship, gridlock, it is a tough place to get things done. How do you personally feel like you can go down there and make a difference for Maine?
Well, again, I think it's the same thing. I just don't think that there's enough people with a working class background that are represented there. There's definitely some. I certainly would like to be someone that brings that same mentality of talking about the issues, explain to people how hard it is for the everyday working class people, and try and convince people that there's a different way to do things. And I think that that's certainly something that is needed there, and that it can be done. I mean, it's the same thing. I came out of really nowhere where I'm representing now, and 12 years later, I've certainly made some change, not as much as I'd like to, but I'm certainly determined to make a difference.
Well, and for me, in 2010, when the Democrats lost control of the legislature for the first time in more than 30 years, I became the first Democrat to be the minority leader in my lifetime. And there are really two ways you can go when you get to that kind of moment, particularly with the first Republican governor we'd had in a while and an all-Republican controlled legislature. And the paths are either you can say no to everything and you can be really bummed out all the time that you're not in charge. Or you can do what I did and what we did as House Democrats that year, which was we didn't show up to say no. We said not that, but this, and here's why. We defined success not just by winning, but by protecting things we care about. The fact that during that term, we were able to come to an agreement on regulatory reform, for example, something that was good for everybody. The fact that we were able to protect a woman's right to make her own health care decisions despite 5 attempts that session to undermine and undo Maine's laws and protect Maine's laws around equality and protection for all people under the law. It's the fact that we learned to define success in new ways. And that combination of knowing how to work across the aisle, come together to find common ground, while at the same time standing up for my values and values of Maine people. That experience was the best I could have had to go down to Washington and be ready to get to work on the first day.
Well, us Republicans thought that it was great that the Democrats.
I bet you did.
We did. Let me ask you another kind of Republican question. I mean, on the federal level, certainly one of the major problems we have is our national debt. $17 trillion and counting. And whoever goes down to Congress seems to be just adding and adding and adding to that debt. What are you going to do about it, Emily? And specifically, would you vote for a balanced budget amendment? We have to balance our budget, as you know, in the state of Maine on the Appropriations Committee. Why shouldn't Washington have to do the same thing?
Well, as someone who served as chair of the Appropriations Committee and on that committee for 6 years, and while I was chair, even though it was the worst budget Maine had ever seen in its history, the biggest shortfalls ever, we were able to come to 5 unanimous, bipartisan, balanced budgets that year. I'm proud of that. But that means you don't take my way or the highway approach. It means you sit down, you work through every single issue. Look, the federal government is in a place where I don't think you could balance that budget overnight. It's gotten pretty far afield. But I do know that when we look at, there are definitely ways we can shore up Social Security. We can do things like raise the cap on the income so that it has more funds coming in to make sure those programs are solvent going forward. We can do more to look at where the government is spending its money. I have that experience. I'll be ready to take a close look at every line of that budget, just like I have for the last really 8 years in Augusta.
Hey, Troy, let me ask you the same question. Don't we have to get to a balanced budget on the federal level as well as on the state level? And would you vote for a balanced budget amendment?
Well, I certainly would vote for one, but much like it was said, it's going to take a while. When you do tax cuts for the wealthy, just like they've done in Washington, like we've done here in Maine, those issues obviously have to be paid for. I think those are things that are not a priority for me. I think that in this past budget, we've seen that, we had, or the governor proposed trying to take away revenue sharing to pay for those tax cuts. Those are things that, I'm really the only one in this campaign hasn't supported, giving tax cuts to wealthy people. I don't want to. Those are core issues for me that, I think that you have to talk about that. I don't go into a room and give up things like Social Security, pensions, things like that. I'm certainly someone that wants to have a balanced budget, not tax and spend liberal, but there's core issues that I don't think that I don't want to give up on, and those are things like Social Security, which is a commitment we made to people. I'm not going to give up on that. I'm not going to back down on it. I'm going to work to strengthen it. But there's other things that we certainly can talk about. But those are really some of the reasons why I'm running for this.
Great, Troy. The Obama administration has been pretty hands-on in education, and some would say at the state level, they've really pushed the states in a fairly aggressive way with some of their policies, and there's been some pushback. Where do you think the federal government should be on education, and what would you hope that they would bring back to Maine? You could bring back to Maine.
Well, I would hope that the federal government would let our Maine teachers continue to teach, to be creative, to reach out and try and do new things to help our students. I mean, not everyone reaches the same level at the same time. You get in a classroom, there's some kids that test well, some don't. So I'm not a big fan of the federal government pushing on mandates onto us. I think that we have to let our teachers be creative, and I think we have great teachers, great students in the state. I mean, I look at what my kids have learned in their time from when I went to school. I'm amazed at some of the things that the schools are doing. But all these testing and standards and things like that sometimes get in the way of teachers being able to actually reach out and work at students that are having a harder time. And it puts a lot of pressure on people. So I'm not someone that really thinks that the federal government should have an iron fist and whenever they're trying to drive mandates back on the state.
Emily.
I think for the federal government, it's time to get back to basics. And that means supporting teachers. That means staying away from strategies that bring us to the lowest common denominator as a nation. We need to be having higher standards when it comes to science, technology, engineering, math, and the arts. We need to make sure we are setting our sights high. But for education and the needs here in Maine, I really think the federal government's role needs to be, again, back to the basics when it comes to how we afford higher education. The federal government has gotten way off track. They've gotten in the loan business. They now advertise that there are billions of dollars available for you to go to college. And that's wrong, because more student debt is not a way to get into or stay in the middle class in Maine or anywhere. We need to get back to programs like the GI Bill that have helped so many Mainers and so many Americans go to college. We need to beef up Pell Grants that were originally supposed to pay for 75% of the cost of college. Now you're lucky if it hits 20%, 25%. I've spent my entire professional career in education. I've seen so many families in Maine struggle to pay for college. The University of Maine offered an education I could afford and my family could afford, and I'm fortunate because of that. But when I get to Washington, that's what it's going to be about for me. Let's get back to basics. Let's focus on affordability and access, and let's make sure we are setting our sights high as a nation.
Senator Cain, Senator Jackson, thanks for being with us. We're going to be back in just a minute and chat with them further as we're going to learn who the Democratic candidate for the 2nd Congressional District will be on June 10th.
Now is the time. If you're ready for a home loan or a home repair, if you want to get behind the wheel of a new vehicle, make it happen with a visit to your local Maine credit union. For low loan rates, great terms, and decisions made locally. Everything feels right about a credit union, starting with people who are always willing to work with you. If you want a better way to borrow, join a Maine credit union, your best financial choice. Now is the time.
At MacPage, we believe in developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference. We enjoy the people we serve and care about the work we do, providing integrated accounting, consulting, and tax services to our clients throughout New England and across the country. Please visit us at macpage.com to learn more.
Welcome back. For the second part of the show, we're going to try to get to some quick fire questions where we're going to ask the candidates to answer in just yes or no answers or very brief. And I know that is hard for politicians, myself and Roger included. So I'll start with Troy, and you'll each answer each question. So Troy, federal minimum wage increase to $10.10, yes or no?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That was quick.
Yeah. See, we're off to a good
You're
start.
not asking me that question.
No.
Okay. East-West Highway, should we do it or should we do it? Emily.
I don't think there's any way at this point that's going to happen. I think there's potential there for economic growth, but there's so much discontent where that highway is being looked at. It's not going to fly right now.
No.
Troy, gun control, mandatory background checks, yes or no?
I'd have to see it before I could answer, but I mean, I'm certainly interested in looking at background checks, but I mean, at this point, I haven't seen anything that makes sense for the rural parts of the state.
Yes to background checks.
Social Security, it's beginning to run out of money. Increase the retirement age under Social Security, Emily?
No.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Gay marriage support in Congress, yes or no?
100% every single day, yes.
Yes.
Healthcare question. Troy, do you think companies should be required to provide birth control services under their health insurance for their employees?
Yes.
Absolutely.
They are being brief.
See, I have faith in these two. Troy, climate change. How would you rate it as an issue for our country on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think that 10 being the highest, I'd rate it a 10. I mean, it's certainly an issue, and it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't even believe it's happening.
In a state like Maine, it would almost have to be an 11 or a 12. Our economy relies on our natural resources. We have to take climate change seriously.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Emily, tell us the last 2 books you read, anything you learned from them, and what magazines you regularly read.
Well, I'll start with the magazine. Ever since I was a kid, we've had Time magazine at our house. And when we moved out of the house, the first thing my parents did was get me a subscription to Time magazine. So that's absolutely been great. The book I'm in the process of reading right now is the Olympia Snow's book. I've just recently started it. I thought it was an important book to read since she represented the 2nd District and has had an important history in the United States Congress. And prior to that, it's a book of short stories. I like to read short stories, and it was a book of writers under the age of 40 who were new and upcoming writers for short stories, and it's a great collection.
Thanks, Troy.
Well, Roger, as you know, I'm a Labor Democrat, so I read stuff like that. And Confessions of an Economic Hitman is the last one. Right now, I'm reading Nick Carnes' White Collar Crime. Those things are, issues that I really are interested in, and so that's stuff I'm reading. Sports Illustrated probably is my magazine.
Great. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you forgot to ask him the Red Sox question.
Oh, that's right. We'll get to that.
All right.
We'll get to that.
Troy, another easy one, hopefully. What is the last thing you cooked? Or you cooked well?
Oh, God, that's never happened, cooked well. I don't know. I've been down here, so I haven't really had a chance to cook much at all, but geez, I don't know. I think I cooked my son a steak on the grill last time we were home. Yeah.
Yep.
For me, when things are crazy, I like to bake and cook because it's something I can do with a start, an end, and a really great result that makes people happy. I made an excellent batch of chocolate chip cookies the other weekend and shared them around the neighborhood.
Nice. Okay. Favorite Boston sports team, Emily?
Red Sox, no question.
Okay.
Easy.
Troy?
Yeah, absolutely the Red Sox. Certainly Patriots is coming up a lot, but Red Sox has been, right from childhood.
All right.
Emily, outside of politics and issues, what is important to you?
For me, it's spending time with family and friends. I met my husband, Danny, through a choir. We do a lot of singing. Music is very important for me. And just in the last few years, I've really gotten into participating in road races around Maine at Sugarloaf or Mount Desert Island. And that's been a real opportunity for me to not just get in shape, but really get to know people from all over the state who really like to be outside. So those are the things I like to do to help me stay fit and happy, I guess.
Troy.
Well, definitely my family is, very important. The holidays that we can get together and stuff like that, I just really enjoy those things. And, a lot of the things that help us do that is hunting, fishing. Not that, I just like to be with my kids, my father, my family, and that's one of the ways we do it.
I'm going to ask you each about, tell us about one person who's really had a positive impact on your life. Troy?
Well, honestly, there's been so many, but, growing up, both my parents, for different reasons, my mother definitely worked hard to make sure. My father did too. We didn't, now my partner, my kids, again, getting back to family. I really appreciate everything that people have done for me, and been a lot of good teachers along the way. That's a harder question. That's
For me, I talk to my dad every morning. He is a rock. Before I did a show like this, I called and asked him for advice, and he said, well, just tell the truth and be yourself. And that's the kind of advice and support I've always been able to count on my dad for. He's the father of 3 girls. I'm the oldest of 3 sisters, which is great practice for politics. And it was really that grounding in family and the fact that my parents always said, just go for it. Be yourself. Do your best every single day. That's the same attitude I've brought to Augusta and the same attitude I'll bring to Congress.
Emily, you guys have both been traveling around the 2nd CD. You've been to a lot of places you might not have been before. What is something that you've learned about the 2nd District or an issue in the 2nd District that you think people would be interested in?
Well, whether I've been down east or up north or in western Maine or right here in central Maine, what I've discovered is there are too many families on the edge across Maine. And it's not just a matter of choosing between food and medicine and heat, especially in the long winter that we had. It's families that are just wondering, how are they going to get through the next few months? What's going to happen to their kids? They're tired of getting on planes or trains or highways to go see their kids. And that's what stuck with me, is that no matter where you are in Maine, Maine families need more economic opportunity. And whether it's been at parades or at bean suppers, the families I talk to, they don't want you to give them success. They want to have the opportunity to achieve it, like George Mitchell always said. And that's what stuck with me on the campaign trail.
Great. Troy?
Well, I think that what's stuck with me is, even though the state's a big state and things are different, obviously you live on the coast, that's an area that I haven't been too much. I mean, western Maine, but people all feel like they're being left behind. There's no one paying attention to them. And I understand that very well, because that's the way I felt whenever I got involved with politics, and still feel today. And so, as much as the areas of the state are different, I think that for a lot of us, we're the same. I actually had a chance to go out to Jonesport and go out lobstering with Rock Alley. First time I've ever been on the ocean in my life. Yeah. And, those people were talking about the very same thing that loggers in northern Maine were talking about. And it's unfortunate. And I just think that they're looking for somebody to listen to them more than anything.
Great.
Well, it's obvious that the Democrats are going to have an excellent candidate for the 2nd Congressional District. And we thank both of you very much for being here.
Now is the time. If you're ready for a home loan or a home repair, if you want to get behind the wheel of a new vehicle, make it happen with a visit to your local Maine credit union. For low loan rates, great terms, and decisions made locally. Everything feels right about a credit union, starting with people who are always willing to work with you. If you want a better way to borrow, join a Maine credit union, your best financial choice. Now is the time.
At MacPage, we believe in developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference. We enjoy the people we serve and care about the work we do, providing integrated accounting, consulting, and tax services to our clients throughout New England and across the country. Please visit us at macpage.com to learn more.
Welcome back. As you just said, Roger, I do think the Democrats are very lucky. We have 2 excellent candidates, both from your state Senate, who are running for Congress, and it will be interesting to watch and see what happens. So June 10th is the date that voters can get out and vote in the Democratic and Republican primaries for the 2nd CD. So make sure you show up to vote if you live in the 2nd District. 2
great good choices, I agree. And on the Republican side, it's the same thing. Kevin Ray and Bruce Poliquin running for the Republican nomination for the 2nd congressional seat as well. But there are other primaries that go on from time to time.
We've heard.
And Gary Crocker is going to tell us about one of them. Gary?
When me and Mother got to thinking about the primary season, we got to reminiscing about what happened a while ago during this time of year. As we recall, old Winston Hickey was engaged in a pitched battle for the state Senate with Bradley Norton. Both men were determined to win their party's nomination and were willing to do almost anything to win. And money was apparently no object. No siree, Bob. Both men kept digging in their own pockets to outdo their opponent. And the primary focus of their expenditures seemed to be the size of their signs, especially rooftop signs on their personal cars. Bradley started it all by putting a 2-by-3-foot sign extolling his personal virtues on top of his 1978 Caprice Classic. That compelled Winslow to affix a 3-by-4-foot sign on top of his 1967 Volkswagen Beetle. So Bradley, of course, had to top it by putting a new 4-by-5 version of his original sign on top of his car. Winslow countered with a showstopper, a 7-foot by 10-foot behemoth worthy of being a road-sized billboard for Disney World, against the advice of his campaign staff, by the way. As he was whistling along Route 126, a crosswind lifted his VW right off the road and set it right down on top of a vehicle traveling in the opposite direction. Ironically, it was a Caprice Classic being driven by his opponent, Bradley Norton. Well, no one was injured in the crash, but both cars were destroyed, along with 2 promising political careers. When word got out about their insane escalation of signage, a write-in campaign spontaneously sprung up for Mabel Dresden, who won in a landslide without putting up a single sign or poster. There's got to be a moral in there somewhere, but for the life of me, I can't find it. Good luck to everybody during this primary season, especially the voters. Yeah?
Well, it's always good to hear a good campaign story from Gary, and I'm going to hope that our candidates don't end up with the same fate. So thank you again for joining us.
Right, I'm going to remember that myself. No big signs on top of the car as I'm going out there. Well, thank you very much for watching. It was great having Senator Jackson, Senator Cain with us. And Hannah and I will see you next time on Pingree and Katz, the main event. Thanks for watching.
This program has been brought to you by Logisticare, the nation's leading provider of specialized transportation network management to state and local government clients. By Maine's credit unions, now is the time for a credit union. There is one for you. And by MacPage, developing relationships, earning trust, addressing complex issues, and making a difference.